Welcome to another episode of Books in Bytes. Today we're diving deep into a novel that's, well, fascinated and perhaps disturbed readers for over a century. Oscar Wilde's only novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray.
It really is a singular work, part Gothic horror, part philosophical treatise, part savage critique of Victorian society. It's got everything.
Absolutely. And if you've ever been captivated by that idea of eternal youth, or maybe wondered about the darker side of aestheticism, beauty above all else, then this is definitely the deep dive for you.
We're going to unpack the story, obviously, but also dig into those core themes Wilde presents. Youth, beauty, corruption, the soul versus desire. It's framed as this tragic metamorphosis, really. A story of temptation, vanity, and the terrible price of chasing perfection.
Our mission today, then, is to unfold this hauntingly beautiful and, frankly, quite unsettling story and pull out those key moral and philosophical threads Wilde weaves throughout.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's set the scene. We need to start where the tragedy itself begins. In that sun-drenched London studio, it's where the key players converge and where beauty first becomes, well, a conscious and dangerous thing. Wilde just plunges you straight into this atmosphere, doesn't he? You can almost smell the heavy scent of the roses, feel the summer heat, the bite of the turpentine. It's very sensory.
He does, and right there is Basil Hallward, the artist. He's just finishing his masterpiece, this portrait of Dorian Gray. And he's not just painting a picture. He tells Lord Henry quite plainly that Dorian has somehow unlocked something profound in his art, in his soul even.
It's more than just admiration, isn't it? It's presented as almost devotional.
Oh, completely. Basil sees Dorian as this platonic ideal. Perfect, untouched, the source of an artistic inspiration he's never felt before. He even admits he doesn't want to exhibit the portrait.
Right, because it shows too much.
Exactly. Too much of himself, his own intense feelings, his worship of Dorian's beauty and youth. At this point, the portrait is pure. It captures this idealized innocence.
But that sort of quiet, intense atmosphere doesn't last long. Because then walks in Lord Henry Wotton. He's the absolute opposite of Basil, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. If Basil is the soul of art, Lord Henry is the cynical intellect. He's witty, he's detached, he's this philosopher of pleasure, as Wilde implies, a preacher of indulgence.
He's the catalyst, the one who introduces the poison, so to speak.
That's a perfect way to put it. Lord Henry, often called Prince Paradox, lives by this code, or maybe anti-code. He believes morality and convention are just, well, tedious constraints. Life, for him, is about sensation, experience, pursuing desire without guilt.
A new hedonism, he calls it.
Precisely. And he sees young, beautiful, naive Dorian Gray and immediately goes to work. It's almost like a targeted corruption.
He starts by making Dorian conscious of the one thing he hadn't worried about: time. The fact that this perfection he possesses is fleeting.
Yes, he fills Dorian's head with these beautifully phrased but incredibly dangerous ideas. That youth is everything, that beauty is the only thing that matters. He warns him, your rose-red youth, it will not last. That his face will wrinkle, his eyes dim.
And he delivers it all with such charm and wit. These little aphorisms that sound so clever, like, the only way to get rid of a temptation is to yield to it.
Right. It's intellectual venom wrapped in elegance. He's not just suggesting pleasure, he's reframing life itself. Virtue and vice, just different flavors of experience. He essentially tells Dorian to live intensely, burn brightly, because the flame will inevitably die down. And that thought, the thought of decay, terrifies Dorian.
It's a terror he's never felt before, planted by Lord Henry. And it leads directly to that moment, the critical moment with the portrait.
Dorian looks at Basil's finished work. It's perfect. It's beautiful. And it will stay perfect and beautiful, while he, the living subject, will age and wither.
And in that moment of panic and vanity, he makes the wish.
He cries out, doesn't he? Something like, if only it were the other way, if I could stay young and the picture could grow old. He offers his soul for it. A classic Faustian bargain, really, but given that specific Wildean aesthetic twist.
It's passionate, impulsive, maybe even foolish youth. But in Wilde's world, such wishes are never granted without a terrible cost.
And with that, the pact is sealed. He's essentially outsourced his conscience, his aging process, his very soul, to that canvas. The stage is set for the unfolding tragedy.
So the wish is made. What happens immediately after? Does the world change instantly?
Not on the surface, no. Dorian is still beautiful, still charming, But now he has Lord Henry as his constant guide, his mentor in this new philosophy of life, whispering these ideas about living for pleasure, chasing every sensation.
And Dorian just dives right in.
He does. He starts living by these principles, following every whim, seeking out every thrill London has to offer. He's completely under Henry's influence.
But the supernatural element, the pact, it's real. And it needs, well, payment. There has to be a trigger point.
There is. And it comes relatively quickly with the Sybil Vane episode. This is the first real test, the first major sin that leaves a mark.
Tell us about Sybil. She's a young actress, right?
Yes, very young, very talented, working in a rather shabby theater. Dorian sees her perform, falls instantly in love, or rather, he falls in love with her art, with the illusion she creates on stage. Juliet, Rosalind, these characters she embodies.
He sees her as an artistic ideal, not a person.
Exactly. And she, in turn, falls deeply, genuinely in love with the real Dorian, which, paradoxically, ruins her art.
Oh, so?
She tells him later, quite tragically, that before she knew him, the stage was her reality. Now that she's experienced real love, real passion with him, she can't just pretend anymore. The fictions feel hollow. So her acting becomes, well, terrible. Lifeless.
And Dorian's reaction to this revelation?
It's brutal, absolutely cold. He was fascinated by the actress, the artist. The real loving woman holds no interest for him once the artistry is gone. He tells her, quite cruelly, "You have killed my love." He basically says she's shallow now that she can't act.
That rejection is the first real act of profound cruelty we see from him, driven by this aesthetic sensibility Lord Henry has fostered.
It is, and it has immediate, devastating consequences. Sybil Vane is heartbroken, utterly destroyed by his callousness. She takes her own life that night.
And this is the moment the portrait comes into play, isn't it?
Yes. When Dorian gets home, still sort of annoyed by the drama of it all, he glances at the portrait Basil painted, and he notices something.
The first change.
The very first change. Wilde describes it as just a subtle shift. A touch of cruelty now lurking around the painted mouth. A hint of hardness in the expression that wasn't there before.
So the painting is already reflecting the state of his soul. The ugliness of that act is immediately imprinted on the canvas.
Precisely. He's horrified, not primarily by Sybil's death, mind you, but by the fact that the painting is marred. It's proof the pact is real. The portrait has begun its work as the visual record of his moral decay.
Does he repent? Does he see this as a warning sign?
Briefly. He's shocked, considers destroying the painting, even thinks about turning back. But then Lord Henry arrives, smooths everything over, frames Sybil's death as this sort of tragic, almost artistic event. He convinces Dorian it wasn't his fault, that it was just life, or rather, art.
And Dorian chooses to believe him. He chooses denial.
He does. He embraces the freedom the portrait offers. He locks it away up in an old schoolroom at the top of the house, hiding the evidence of his soul's corruption. From this point on, the pattern is set. Dorian remains outwardly perfect, untouched by time or sin.
While the hidden portrait...
A hidden portrait bears the burden. It ages, it twists, it grows uglier with every selfish act, every cruelty, every descent into vice. It becomes the inescapable, horrifying mirror of his true self, confirming the wish and locking him onto this path of hidden decay.
So, with the portrait locked away, Dorian essentially has a free pass, doesn't he? He can live this double life.
He does, and the novel then charts this long, slow decay over almost 2 decades. Dorian fully commits himself to Lord Henry's new hedonism. He chases every possible sensation.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, Wilde gives us a whole chapter, almost a catalog of his obsessions. He collects jewels, perfumes, rare tapestries, musical instruments. He delves into obscure philosophies, mysticisms, and, more darkly, into London's underworld. Opium dens, shadowy encounters, anything to stimulate the senses and perhaps numb the conscience.
He seems particularly influenced by a book Lord Henry gives him.
Ah, yes, the infamous Yellow Book. It's never named explicitly beyond its color, but it's widely understood to be a reference to Joris Karl Huysmans' A Rebours, Against Nature. It becomes like a Bible of decadence for Dorian, detailing the life of a French aristocrat pursuing strange artificial sensations. It poisons his mind, guides him deeper into this life of curated vice.
In all this time, his appearance remains unchanged.
Utterly unchanged. Decades pass, his friends grow old, but Dorian remains the picture of youthful innocence. This creates this bizarre social phenomenon around him.
He becomes a legend. In a way, admired for his beauty, envied for his youth, but also feared. Rumors start to circulate, dark whispers about his influence, stories of young men whose lives are ruined after becoming close to him, people disappearing, scandals hushed up.
But no one can prove anything.
Because how could they? Look at him, that angelic face, that clear brow, it acts as the perfect shield. Society judges by appearance, and his appearance screams innocence. Wilde is definitely critiquing that superficiality here. Beauty grants him impunity.
Meanwhile, upstairs, in the locked room,
the real story is being told. The portrait becomes progressively more hideous. The cruelty deepens, lines of sin appear, the eyes become cunning, maybe even malevolent. It reflects every dark thought, every corrupt act.
it's described as becoming quite monstrous.
It is, and Dorian can't stay away. He hides it, covers it with a cloth, but he's drawn back again and again. Partly fascination, partly horror, partly perhaps to reassure himself that the decay is contained there on the canvas and not showing on his own face.
It's his secret conscience, made visible only to him.
Exactly. It allows him this psychological split. He can indulge in the most appalling behavior, knowing the physical price is being paid elsewhere, until eventually the past catches up with him in the form of the man who started it all.
Basil Hallward returns.
Yes, years later. Basil is planning to leave for Paris, wants to see Dorian first. He's heard the terrible rumors, the whispers that have followed Dorian for years, and he's deeply troubled.
Does he still feel responsible in a way?
I think he does. He feels this lingering affection, but also a sense of dread. He confronts Dorian, and not aggressively at first, but pleads with him. Are these stories true? He urges Dorian to deny them, to prove his soul is still clean. He speaks of prayer, of repentance.
How does Dorian react to this plea?
It's the breaking point. Basil's earnest concern, his talk of the soul, it just infuriates Dorian. Maybe it touches a nerve too raw. In a moment of chilling malice, Dorian decides to show Basil the truth. The real Dorian Gray.
He takes him up to the locked room.
He does. He unveils the portrait, and Basil stares at this grotesque, aged, leering thing on the canvas. He recognizes his own brushwork, but the face is a mockery, a demon. He's utterly horrified, finally understanding the depth of Dorian's corruption.
And Basil begs him to pray.
Yes, he sees it as the only hope, but Dorian is beyond prayer. Basil's horror, his judgment, it fuels this sudden, uncontrollable rage in Dorian, a rage born from fear, perhaps fear of exposure, fear of the truth Basil represents. And then Dorian snaps. He sees a knife lying nearby, one he'd used to cut a rope for the frame, ironically, and he grabs it. He blames Basil, screams that Basil's art caused all this, and in this fit of madness, he stabs Basil, murders him right there, in front of the monstrous record of his own soul.
The creator killed by his creation, in a sense, or by the consequence of his creation.
Precisely. It's the point of no return, utterly irredeemable, and the portrait, of course, reflects this immediately. A new horror is added. The gleam of blood appears on one of the painted hands.
Dorian tries to cover it up, doesn't he? Forces an old acquaintance, a chemist named Alan Campbell, to dispose of the body using chemicals.
Yes, he blackmails Campbell into destroying the physical evidence. But the spiritual evidence, that's now permanently, hideously etched onto the canvas. His supposed immortality has become a cage, and the portrait a source of unbearable, inescapable guilt.
So, after murdering Basil and disposing of the body, Dorian is haunted. Is that fair to say?
Deeply haunted. The weight of Basil's death, added to everything else, is crushing. The pleasures he used to escape into now feel hollow, even tainted. He's tormented by guilt, by fear, especially after an encounter with James Vane, Sybil's vengeful brother who almost kills him.
He narrowly escapes that purely because Vane sees his young face and thinks he can't possibly be the man from 18 years ago.
Right. His eternal youth saves him physically again, but the psychological terror remains. So Dorian makes this attempt at change, or at least he convinces himself it's an attempt at change.
What does he do?
He's in the countryside and meets a young, innocent village girl, Hetty Merton. He has the opportunity to seduce her, ruin her, as he likely would have done before, but he decides to spare her, to leave her innocence intact.
He sees this as an act of goodness, a step towards redemption.
He tells himself it is. He thinks maybe this good deed, this sacrifice of a potential pleasure, will start to reverse the damage on the portrait. Maybe it will begin to grow beautiful again.
So he rushes back to check the painting.
Exactly. Full of this self-congratulatory sense of virtue, he goes up to the attic, pulls back the cover, expecting improvement, hope.
And what does he see?
It's arguably the most damning moment for him. The portrait hasn't improved at all. In fact, it looks worse. There's a new expression added to the corruption, a look of cunning, of hypocrisy.
Why hypocrisy?
Because, as Dorian is forced to realize, his motive wasn't pure. He didn't spare Hetty out of genuine goodness or compassion. He did it out of vanity. He wanted the painting to look better, to ease his own suffering. It was a selfish act disguised as virtue.
So the soul's mirror, the portrait, saw right through it. It registered the vanity, not the act itself.
Precisely. It was just another form of selfishness. And this realization breaks him. He understands that he's truly lost, that genuine change is impossible for him. The portrait is the truth of his soul, and that soul is irrevocably hideous.
And there's only one way he thinks he can escape it now.
He decides the portrait itself is the source of his misery. It's the evidence, the conscience, the constant reminder. If he can destroy it, maybe he can destroy the past, destroy the guilt.
So, in a final act of desperation and rage,
he grabs the same knife he used to kill Basil Hallward, the instrument of his deepest sin, and he turns it on the painting, plunging it into the canvas, aiming for the heart, trying to kill the image, kill his soul made manifest.
a terrible cry is heard throughout the house.
Yes. The servants hear it, are disturbed by it. They eventually make their way up to the locked room. They have to break down the door.
And inside, what do they find?
It's the great final reveal. The ultimate horror, and the ultimate resolution. On the wall hangs the portrait of Dorian Gray, but it's perfect again, restored to its original breathtaking beauty. Young, innocent, flawless, just as Basil painted it all those years ago.
The art is pure again?
The art is pure, but on the floor beneath it lies a body.
Dorian.
It is Dorian, but utterly unrecognizable at first. It's the body of an old man, withered, wrinkled, disgusting. The face is contorted, hideous, a perfect mirror of the corruption the portrait had carried for so long. All the sins, all the decay instantly transferred back to him the moment the canvas died.
He effectively killed himself by trying to kill the painting.
Yes. By destroying the magical link, he reclaimed his true age and the physical manifestation of his soul's state. The servants can only identify this horrid figure as Dorian Gray because of the wings on his fingers, the symbols of his wealth and vanity.
Wow, what an ending. It really drives home Wilde's point, doesn't it? This whole narrative serves as this kind of universal mirror.
It really does. It's a stark warning about the blindness that comes from living only for surfaces, for pleasure, for aesthetic sensation without moral grounding. It forces you, the reader, to ask, what's beauty worth if it costs your soul? What's youth worth if your spirit becomes monstrous? In the end, Wilde's warning is crystal clear, I think. To worship beauty above truth, to value pleasure over conscience, it's presented as a path to illusion, ultimately trading eternity for something fleeting and false. Dorian could hide his sins from the world, but never from himself. That portrait, the real one, is painted on the soul.
And eventually, reality asserts itself, often in the most brutal way.
Indeed. The final image leaves us with so much to think about, especially today, perhaps. In our own world, so often focused on appearance, on defying age, on curated online personas, what are we potentially sacrificing to keep the surface looking untouched?
That's the lingering question, isn't it? What kind of immortality are we chasing? The one that just preserves the face or the one that preserves something deeper, something like the spirit?
A profound thought to carry away.
It definitely is. If this discussion has intrigued you, you really should experience the original. Grab a copy of the book from the link in the description.
It's a masterpiece you won't forget.
And subscribe to Books and Bytes for more deep dives into literature.